integrating it into pedagogical system. It talks about implementation without creating a rural-urban divide. It's rooted in Indian ethos. It aims to transform India into an equitable and vibrant society so that every child can constructively participate in the nation building process. It introducing early childhood education from age 3, offering school board examinations twice a year to help improve performance, moving away from rote learning, raising mathematical skills for everyone, creating literacy skills, emphasizing computational thinking skills, and simultaneously educating them in mother tongue and regional languages. To elaborate more on NEP 20, a new paradigm in education, we have with us Professor S.M. Shivprasad, Director, Karnataka State Higher Education Academy, Dharwad, and also a professor at International Center for Material Science. We all welcome you, sir, for the presentation.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.
I have a pleasant task of welcoming all of you too. I welcome Founder President Professor K.I. Vasu in his absentia, patron, who has conveyed his best wishes to the program. We have Captain Ganesh Karnik. He's stuck in traffic jam, who is going to join us shortly. He is a president and ex-captain Indian Army, former MLC Government of Karnataka, an ever busy person who is, in spite of another program during this time, prioritized SVAK and is available with us. Hearty welcome to you too, sir. Dr. C. Renuka Prasad, Working President of SVAK, Professor Ramesh H., Founder and General Secretary of SVAK, Dr. Sudha V., Vice President SVAK, and Dr. Y.S. Gayatri Madam, Founder and Treasurer, who are online. My hearty welcome to all of you, sirs and madams.
Madam, can you continue, please?
Madam, mute agide. Madam is also muted. Bharti Madam is also muted.
Yeah. I think I request the organizers to mute all the participants. Otherwise, every now and then there may be disturbance.
Give me a second, madam. Yeah.
Yeah. Am I audible now?
Yes, madam.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay. So, Dr. Umesh Rudrapatna, Member Secretary, Bangalore Urban District, I welcome you too, sir. It's indeed, SVAK is happy to welcome other dignitaries online and participants from all over India. I think we have, I'll just go through the list. Dr. Gayatri, Dr. Prakash HS, Anand Matakalli, Shri, Archana, Asha, Dr. Raghavendra, Dr. Raghava, Dr. Keshavamurthy, Dr. Neelam Tandon, Vinay Kumar, and many more dignitaries online. I welcome all of you. Thank you very much. Now I request Dr. Umesh Rudrapatna to brief about SVAK. Before that, during today's event, I myself, Bharti Ganesh, and Dr. Umesh Rudrapatna will be managing the show, and Dr. H.S. Prakash, retired Chief General Manager, BEML, Rail Metro Division. He'll be introducing the chief guest, and Dr. Shivanna, an active member and Joint Secretary of SVAK, will be managing the show behind. Of course, vote of thanks will be delivered by Professor Gayatri Madam. And yes, this is the flow of the program. Before starting the event, I have a few announcements to make. I'm sure all participants are aware that the queries and questions are to be typed in the chat box. Be interactive, of course, on the chat box. Raise your hand at the end of the session if you wish to interact with the speaker one-to-one online. Most importantly, fill up the feedback form shared at the end of the program to receive your participation certificate. We don't forget to share the link, of course, only at the end of the program. All will be shared or recorded proceedings tomorrow. Hence, request for PPT in chat box should be strictly avoided. Keep your mic muted and video blocked to run the program without network hindrance or to avoid a bandwidth problem. So let us know more about it. Over to Professor Umesh Rudrapatna to brief about SVAK. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. Welcome all. I'm Umesh Rudrapatna. I work for Philips Healthcare. I am basically secretary of the Bangalore unit of SVAK. I am stepping in the absence of Captain Ganesh Kanik, who is our president, for a very brief time. He's going to join us and he's going to address the gathering later. I just want to say what we do in SVAK very briefly. So as you already heard from Dr. Bharati Ganesh, SVAK stands for Swadeshi Vijnana Andolana, and this is the Karnataka unit of SVAK. We have members from all walks of life, but mostly from the education sector. We also have people from, let's say, agriculture, politics, engineering, you name it, we have it. So it's a very vibrant organization, and we organize programs most of the time in person, but since Corona has started, it has been mostly online. But we conduct two main programs. One is called as Kannada Vijnana Sammelana, which is about doing science in regional language, that is Kannada here. And in that, we have a 3-day session where we commemorate the birthday of Sir M. Vishweshwaraya, and we present a lot of scientific work in Kannada language only. So that's a main program we do annually. And then we also have National Women Science Congress, which coincides with the birth anniversary of Madam Curie and also Sir C.V. Raman. So there, eminent women scientists from all over the country come and present their research work. So these have been two flagship programs, but we do a lot of other programs related to mostly education, well-being of the country, of different areas, be it healthcare or be it management or be it Ayurveda, stuff like that. So in short, in that spirit, we contacted Professor Shiv Prasad asking if he could enlighten us about what is happening in the education sector, especially the higher education sector, and whether he could share his thoughts, views about the revolution literally that's happening in this area. And we were really inspired by his thought about the whole thing. So he really made us feel like we need to have this organized, and this is really, I'm really glad to have you here, sir. We look forward to your lecture, and we will definitely take home a lot. So I request all the participants to stay till the end, enjoy the lecture, gather as much information as you can, and as Bharti Madam said, please interact with the speaker, ask your questions in the chat box. We will pick it up later. With that, I want to just welcome you all once again and say thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Umesh, sir. Now it's time to introduce the speaker. I request Professor Prakash HS, Retired Chief General Manager, BEML, to introduce the speaker to the audience. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Umesh, can you help us?
Yes, sir. Just a second. I'm just trying to load something on the audio side, but it doesn't want to. Just give me a second. Bear with me, please. So this was working just a minute ago, but
Man,
Okay,
computer disposes, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, there it is.
I think it's working now.
No,
right.
not yet. I'm really sorry about that. Give me a second.
I think there is some problem. That's it. Okay. I
Prakash,
think
when you go online, then
I'm
directly.
privileged to.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm privileged. You are able to hear me, Umesh?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm privileged to introduce distinguished speaker of today, Professor is present here. State Higher Education Academy, Dharwad, as well as Professor International Center for Material Science at Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research, Bangalore. Distinguished scientist born in 1957, has a commendable educational background, has done his graduation and post-graduation in Karnataka University, apart from doing doctorate in thin films in Department of Physics, Karnataka University, Dharwad. Also did as a CSR fellow, postdoctoral studies at IIT Delhi. And apart from that, he was also a postdoctoral fellow at Department of Physics, University of Sussex, UK. And presently, I would say his scientific interest goes in the form of surface science, thin films, and nanostructure of semiconductors, metal to metal and metal to semiconductor interfaces, nitride films and nanostructures. And apart from the scientific, quite interested in promoting quality education for a higher education institution through teachers training in pedagogy, research methodology, personality development, education research, etc. And I would say a commendable research activity, what has transpired. He has published more than 250 research papers in international journals and 26 national journals, made a presentation of over 240 in international and national conferences, and also has given invited talks of more than 450 and authoring the 3 valuable books. He is a visiting scientist at Rutgers University, America, United Nations UNIDO Fellowship at Japan, Tohoku University, and also visiting scientist at University of Ulm in Germany. And if I can read out the awards, it will take another 1 hour. So I would only select a few which is envious of a scholastic Shiv Prasad. A Young Scientist Award, he could get it from the President of India in 1982, honorary fellowship from Karnataka Science and Technology Academy, Dr. Raja Ramanna, Karnataka State Government Senior Scientist Award in 2013, outstanding Scientist Award from CSIR NPL in 2005. Apart from that, Medal Lecture Award from Material Research Society of India, Lucknow in 2006, and many more. And he has also got a lot of fellowships under postdoctoral fellowship at London, Rutgers University, RAKCM International Fellowship. Recognition wise, I think quite a good number of representation he has made either in the personal capacity or as an Indian representative, specifically to international union, also World Forum, Japan, representing in Europe, cooperation of nanotechnology in Netherlands, as a member of a vision group of science and technology of government of Karnataka, apart from on the board as a consultant for smart materials for Sri Soul Research Foundation. Quite a good professional bodies. He is actively involved through the membership and also taken up certain responsibilities, specifically Field Research Society of India, American Vacuum Society, Indian Physics Association, Indian Vacuum Society, Indian Society for Analytical Sciences, Indian Science Congress, and Science Society of India. Apart from that, he is also a member of Swadeshi Vijnana Andolana Karnataka. A lot of sponsored research project he has taken up in various capacity, and I would say apart from his scientific, most of you may not be knowing, he is also a very accomplished cricketer as an outside outdoor activity, and as an inside indoor activity is a fantastic table tennis player representing his school, college, and Sussex County. And I would say as a student and as a professional, excel. And today the topic which is quite hard to many of the participants, I would say it will be more interesting. You can make it more challenging and attractive. I leave it to Professor Shiv Prasad to take over this program, sir. Thank you.
Good evening all.
Very good evening, sir.
Okay, good evening all. Wonderful to meet all of you, though virtually. I would have loved to meet you all personally, but of course, now there's an opportunity to come into your houses. So I've come into everybody's house and interacting with you in your house. Thank you all very much for joining. For us, what to say, sacrificing the nice things you can do and wanted to listen to me. So thank you very much. As I said in the beginning, I have a lot of respect for Vasu sir, who has probably started a real andolna in the nation. And of course, I had an interaction with Umesh ji, Prakash Auru, Bharati madam, Ganesh, Gayatri, ಎಲ್ಲರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ I had a video meeting, and they are so inspiring, right? So they all have want to do so much things for the state and for the country, etc. Our inspiration nodi, I was also very happy. And then we thought that we'll have this program. And, somehow with some dates here, there, ultimately today it's come, right? So now the opportunity is for me is to torture you for the next 1 hour or so. So whenever I get an opportunity to torture somebody, I don't leave it, because I've been tortured by many people in the webinars and conferences. So this is an opportunity. So friends, I'll start sharing my slide before and then start my topic. Okay. Right. Yeah, I hope you can all see my slide.
Yes, sir, we can see.
Clear?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a story of what happened, right? What happened is, and our aspiration to become the Vishwa Guru, again, in terms of knowledge. So this is a paradigm. There's a great opportunity in the new national education policy. We'll look into the genesis of this one. So this is about a year and a half ago. This was the picture which we all dreadfully watched on our television screens. It was a terrible COVID disaster. And we know we lost a lot of the people, very people who were close to us, many friends, many colleagues, many relatives. I mean, so many people we lost, and the situation was very desperate, right? And at the same time, similarly, at that time, there was also a problem at our borders. Okay, our irresponsible neighbors behaved a little bit incorrectly, and then we had problems in the borders also, right? So we all know. So there were border warriors who were fighting at the borders, and then we had health warriors fighting for us, for our lives inside the nation. I always wonder why these people fight for us. Why do the border warriors fight for us? Why do the health warriors fight for us? Means there must be something really worth defending, right? So we need to build a nation. This system, the COVID, has really, devastated so many systems. Okay, our economy, our lives, of our education, especially, has been hit very badly. I mean, a lot of suffering has happened. But this is an opportunity for us to rebuild India. Okay, let's not rebuild in the way it was earlier, restructure it, but probably we can reimagine India in a new way. And that, I think, is a great opportunity. And who can do that is by the knowledge warriors. Along with the border warriors and health warriors who save us, it is the knowledge warriors who are going to build and reimagine India. And they are the people who are related with education. So education will play the major role in the growth of our country. And if it happens very successfully, I'm sure we have no problem in achieving the capacity, the potential which we all have. So this picture should be motivating for us, right? You look at this. I'm just trying to compare another nation which is approximately the same size as India in terms of population, and definitely which was in 1990, China and India were approximately the same in terms of economy. And what I'm plotting here is the GDP, the gross domestic product. It is very similar to the GDP per capita also. I mean, at least the shape of the curve looks very similar. And you see, after 1990, look at the change, the slope with which China has grown, and look, in 2010, we are nearly about 4 times GDP smaller than that of China. Okay, what happened in 1990, okay, is very interesting for us to understand. Then, of course, any country has to grow. If it has to grow like China, is probably, in my view, the most important places where you need to invest, a nation needs to invest, is in education and science. Okay, so there was a huge investment in both in education and science in China, and science in China, and you can see the growth which actually happened. So now on the right side is the curve which shows about the gross enrollment ratio Okay, gross enrollment ratio in higher education in India. We all talk about India becoming a number. We all aspire that India will become a #1 nation in this world. But see, the #1 nation in the world, USA, has about 90% gross enrollment ratio. That means people who are eligible to become to be getting higher education, 90% of them get higher education. But look at India, we are still about 26%. Okay, so in fact, I'll tell you later that the NEP aspires in the next 15, 20 years to reach about 50% of the gross enrollment ratio. That means we are still very, very far away from being the #1 in the world. So because it's all defined by education. So you can see this challenge is very large. Already China has reached nearly about 50%. Okay, and they are progressing very well. So there is an important thing. So when all this gloomy atmosphere of COVID was around, okay, came something very, very fresh, and that is the new national education policy. When we are thinking that everything is destroyed, we started seeing some hope that there is something else which is happening. Okay, so 1 minute, yeah, okay. So that hope came. Okay, let's look at the history of how the genesis of how this all happened. Okay, so oops, am I able to go down? Okay, so let's look at civilization, right? We all define civilization based on the materials. For example, the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Steel Age, then the Silicon Age, and then the Nano Age, and now a lot of garbage. So many things have happened because of technology. So this progress of civilization basically depends on education, right? Education plays an extremely important role in any civilization if we want to grow. So now, among all the technologies, what is happening in this world right now is three amazing technologies have come together, and they are nanotechnology, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence. These are amazing. I mean, never in the history of mankind have three such large technology which can really transform the world happened together. So these three have come together, and that gives a real challenge and an opportunity for all of us. So the world has changed from steam to electricity to computer, and now we are internet connected, etc. But the question is, the change is there, but is our nation ready? Are we ready for this change which is going to happen? And let me tell you, friends, the change will not be very far away. In another 10, 15 years, a major change is going to happen in this in the world, and the world we see today will not be the same 15 years from now. There's a huge change happening, and it's very important for us to get ready for this change. Okay, so I'll give you one example. There is one work, a collaborative work done between Cambridge and MIT by Cordio and Wood, are two people. They have written a paper in Science in July issue of 2019. The July issue says, the title, I'll just not go into the details of the research paper, but just tell you the title of the paper. The title of the paper itself is amazing. The title says, Death of Death by the year 2045. Death of Death by the year 2045. That means science is going to conquer, okay, natural death by the year 2045. I mean, think about the consequences, right? So there are young people here who are listening. You may be alive. Maybe an old person like me may not be alive by 2045, but you may plan your 200th birthday, maybe 400 you can get married. When you're 800, you can get children or something like that. So it's big dramatic change which is going to happen. This is one example. Like that, there are millions of examples where all these three technologies coming together have shown such a big promise of the future that it is very important for us to get ready for this change. Okay, so you see, I am not able to change my slide. Okay. Okay, right. See here, this is, let's look at civilizations. Let's go a little bit back. We know that about 3,600 years ago, the Mesopotamian civilization there, then about 3,200 years ago, the Egyptian civilization, the Indian civilization is nearly 3,000 years old. Then the Chinese, the Israeli, the Greek, the Roman, so many civilizations have taken, the Mayan, all these amazing civilizations. So what do you mean by civilization is basically education, right? The knowledge which is coming out of it. We all know that how these have all contributed. For example, probably a school in Mesopotamia looked like this during those days, and then Egyptian school was like this, which were training different kinds of experiential learning. Then we had our own wonderful Gurukula system, which was training people so beautifully in a very, holistic way. The training was there. Then we had the Chinese, we had their own unique way of education. These are all created those civilizations, though called great civilizations. But what was unique about India, and probably the best thing about India, was probably we were the only ones who had so many universities, right? Universities, the Nalanda, the Takshila, and Vallabhi are popular, but we had about 14 universities, okay, which were there in this country. What we mean by university is a universality of knowledge. That means it was many civilizations coming together to discuss several issues and spread knowledge and take it forward. So this is what was happening in India, and we are very, very proud of that. That the knowledge, it was a knowledge hub at that time in India. Okay, so now let's look at those things. What kind of jobs people were doing. We all know that, of course, farming is necessary for food. Then hunting is necessary for food. Then you had traders. Once you farmed and everything, you had traders who had to distribute. Then we had artisans and craftsmen who made pottery, who made things we wanted, a shirt, a pant, I mean, all sorts of things they did it. And then more importantly, there were very, very tiny kingdoms, very small kingdoms with a very short mean-free path. And that's why they had so many borders. Means every country had so many people around them. And so there was a lot of fighting. Okay, a lot of people were busy becoming soldiers. So some of the professions was a farmer. Okay, as you can see here in this graph, most of them were landless workers. Then you had land-owning farmers. Then you had hunters, then artisans, and then to take this way forward, you had merchants. Okay, then above that was this in this pyramid was the wealthy landowners and the gentry who were there. And then you had scholars and officials who were sitting above all of them. And of course, top of it all was the emperor and the imperial court. Right? You see here what happened was these professions, most of these professions were taught in the families. Right? The grandfather was a carpenter, the son was a carpenter, his grandson was a carpenter, like that, the pottery, everything was done like that. But what was important, there were some things which they could, so they learned their skill and the knowledge in their families. So they were just continuing to do that. But there were some professions they could not get that experiential learning in their in their houses, and they wanted some more education, right? So only a few needed formal education, and they got it by the different kinds of schools and education we talked about, right? So that was the kind of jobs which are necessary. This went on for a long time until what we call as the Industrial Revolution 0.0. So this was in the 15th century, the middle of the 15th century, when Johannes Gutenberg invented the printing machine, the printing press. So this made a big transformation. He wanted to make the Bible and spread it across because the Bible was being wrongly interpreted through the word of the mouth. So he wanted to make Bibles and spread it across. So this first printing machine started, and it brought in the concepts of machines, right? So very important transformation and transition takes place, which is called as the Industrial Revolution 0.0. And look at this. This we all remember. The printing presses were huge, and the number of people who were working there were very large. I'm sure most of us remember that the typesetting was done when the printing presses we had were very different than what they are today. And a lot of people would sit there, put the letters together, type it, make a mold, then put an ink and go on printing, the block printing, and all sorts of things happened in the past. But now you see suddenly somehow, look at the transformation, right? Now a printing press is there. There's one guy who will go around, press some keys, and they'll print millions and millions of times of India, or all the newspapers in the world. So printing presses changed from the machine, which brought in a lot of employment for people, and then it started bringing, but ultimately the machines took over, and ultimately you see the number of people required becomes less, and the machine does a much efficient work. So this kind of this next point was the Industrial Revolution, what we call as 1.0. This is when James Watt, okay, in the 18th century, invented the steam engine. So this became a transformative thing because it would carry people across, and then it would carry goods across from long distances. So the mean free path of people, or the average distance, which the mobility of people, increased enormously. So now people started moving to very far away places and carrying a lot of goods with looking for opportunities. So the carpenter's son went on telling, now I don't want to be a carpenter anymore. I want to go to that country and join printing press, start working in an industry or something of that sort. So the mobility of people became enormous because of the steam engine. So we all remember this. Look at these industries, huge industries with a lot of large machines with the steam engine. I mean, and also automobile industry, it started in a very big way and consumed a lot of people. The quality of life of people enhanced, and so they all went from their traditional family professions to start doing new jobs. And this is what is called as Industrial Revolution 1.0. But again, we know Again, we have industries now producing fantastic locomotives, very high-speed locomotives, all sorts of bullet trains, etc. And the number of people required is very, very less. Again, we could make good machines, quality machines, etc. But without the use of manpower. Okay, and so this all required a kind of education, which we call as education 1.0. This education 1.0 was actually training people for a certain fixed job. They didn't want anything else. So look at this cartoon, which is very, very significant. See, look, this fellow has a hexagonal face. This fellow has a square face. I'm sorry, let me see if I can use a pointer. Okay, 1 minute. Yeah, okay. So this fellow has a hexagonal face. This fellow has a square face. This is a pentagon. This is a triangle. But this was the school teacher and this was the school, right? So everybody would put through the school system and made them into circles, right? So because you wanted them that way. So the industry wanted them, everybody with a circle face. That means with a particular skill or the ability, and everybody was transformed. So if somebody did not become like that, okay, then that person was a failure in the society, in the system, right? This was an amazing transformation. I mean, this was the kind of education they were getting. And then this wanted certification because now people were going from one place to another and the other person wanted to know how good you are in something. So then he would say, where is the certificate from a school? And that is how education started giving certificate for a fixed syllabus, for a fixed, in a fixed classroom and with a fixed examination and a fixed evaluation of people. And this became a very, very common thing, right? And then it is the Industrial Revolution 2.0. This was when the car manufacturing, the famous Henry Ford started his conveyor belt, okay, conveyor systems to prepare the car. That means there were experts were required for each. So one person would work on the carburetor, somebody will work on the hub, somebody will work on the steering, somebody will. So like that, there were different jobs which were given. So you needed specialists. And so instead of becoming just a mechanic who wanted in the earlier Industrial Revolution 1.0, now you wanted really trained specialist to bring those high quality manufacturing, which is possible, right? I'm sure you all remember this picture, the Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times. Okay, it was a satire on this Industrial Revolution and the kind of artificiality it brought in life, the mechanical life, how it is, etc. Especially this last picture, I'm sure you all remember that when he was eating the food, which was being fed by a machine, it goes wrong, and the expressions of Charlie Chaplin are never forgettable, right? I mean, amazing actor. I remember a small anecdote when Charlie Chaplin and Einstein met. Okay, and Einstein came and told Charlie Chaplin, "Wow, you are such a great man. People admire you, even though you don't speak anything in your movies. You are so good." And then Charlie Chaplin replied to Einstein, "But you are a greater man than me because people you speak so many things, people don't understand anything, but still they admire you." And that was the characteristic of Charlie Chaplin. So this satire movie was there. So this brought in what is called as education 2.0, right? So now this demanded a different kind of education. It was not for a particular skill. So now the teacher was communicating with the teachers, with the students, the 2.0, and then the students were communicating with each other earlier. So it slowly shifted from a completely a teacher-centric to a classroom-centric education, right? So where the teacher played still the main role, but still he or she was controlled by the teacher, right? So this is the education, what is called as 2.0. So now you have look at this industry. This is the Industrial Revolution 3.0. Amazing transformation in the automobile industry. Look at these cars, right? So, for example, I know that the Toyota car manufacturing in Japan, one factory produces about 43,000 cars every day. Okay, our own Maruti, okay, in Faridabad produces about 9,600 cars every day. So imagine if they had put human beings there, they wouldn't be able to produce so many cars, right? Because technology was very, very important. And look at this, there is no human being seen. They were all robotics, okay, which was assembling the car, fitting the car, doing this, welding, the soldering, the painting, everything was done, is being done automatically. And that is how they are able to get high quality, repetitive results and with less manpower and doing very efficiently, etc., etc. So they could bring these kind of turnouts, right? This is the Industrial Revolution 3.0. Now we are already into Industrial Revolution 4.0. So you can see here, the most important terms we talk about now is the Internet of Things, additive manufacturing, simulations, augmented reality, system integration, automated robotics, okay, big data. Okay, these are all amazing things which are beginning to happen. Now it's already, I mean, it's there in the market, right? So this big change is there, and now this is being controlled through the internet. The internet is playing such a major role in controlling all the devices. You know that we have heard stories when in Bengaluru, the operations in a hospital are done from a surgeon from America. Okay, he sits there and starts doing a surgery. I mean, a precision surgery from sit there through the internet. Okay, so these are some amazing things like this. Many things are happening, and here today I'm able to talk to you, come to your houses, and interact with you because of the internet. So it's an amazing transformation. Now the question is, now people are already talking about industry 5.0, the forthcoming industrial revolution. Okay, a lot of change, some revolutions will be there in mechanization, in automation, and I mean, these are amazing things which are going to happen in the future. So now we have to keep this mind in what we want to do in our country, and the policies and the decisions we take and the kind of education we give. So this brings to what is called as education 3.0. See, look at the education 3.0. This cartoon tells you all, right? So now teacher is no longer he's only a side, he or she is only a side guide. He just sits there and guides the students of how to learn. And the information is not coming from the teacher now. That information is already available on the internet. If you can get into anybody's computer through the internet, right? So you can get all the information from every institution. So many beautiful things are accessible to you. So now access to experts is also very easy, right? I mean, look at here. I'm sitting in Dharwad and probably communicating with anybody anywhere in the world, right? I have my friend Vinay who has joined us from Saudi Arabia. So this is access to different kinds of people also becomes so beautiful, and the diversity of the network. And learner is no longer a sitting silent student who is sitting and listening to the lectures of the teachers, but he is now a connection maker. He makes the connection. While he is making the connections between people, he is able to gather a lot of knowledge. So information is freely available. And not only that, the learner also becomes a content producer and sharer. He produces his own content and he shares with everybody. So student is no longer passive, and now student comes into the center stage of whole education, and the curriculum changes, right? I mean, it is not necessary that I define you need to study this. This is your syllabus. This is the curriculum. Now the whole world, the internet web becomes the curriculum. We'll talk about this because this is all which is going to come in our national education policy. We consider all this because this is an inevitable thing. The way we are going to study, we are going to learn is going to completely very different, right? So social networking and connectivity, connectivism, what it is called, we can become very strong. So there were many people in the past who started working with aligning the industry requirements with education, and these are some of the people who are involved in that. Here, this picture, this sort of table tells us what is the difference between education 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. I'll not go into the table little because of the lack of time, but just tell you they are very different. The education 1.0. But look at it very carefully, and you will understand we are still in education 1.0. We are still turning any face, which was a hexagonal face and a triangular face, everything into a round face. Okay, and that was the problem. I remember Einstein. Einstein was a terrible student. But ultimately, in very young age, he produced 1905. He's produced those 3 amazing papers. Right? So somebody asked him, how you were a bad student, but suddenly how did you become big? So he said very beautifully, he gave a very nice answer. He said that in my school, I was a fish, and the school expected me to climb a tree. So I wanted to swim, but they wanted to climb a tree. So I thought all my schooling that I was stupid. I did not understand. And that is what, then he said, once I came out of school, I was able to think freely and do whatever I like. And because I'm passionately curious about everything, I become whatever I become. So that's what it is. Now the question is, our system is still like that. We are still stuck in education 1.0, where we say, this is the syllabus. If you get this marks, so much marks, then only you become you are good, you are intelligent. Otherwise, you are even a dull, stupid fellow, right? So this is what education has to change. And the teaching was earlier done in 1.0 by licensed professionals, 2.0 also licensed professionals who teach how it is. Like most of the teachers like us, we have a license to teach, and we are doing. But in education 3.0, everybody, everywhere becomes a teacher. So the concept of a teacher itself may change enormously in education 3.0, right? Again, schools were located in buildings, and in the education 2.0, they were building an online, which is happening now because now we also got into this mode. And then ultimately education 3.0 becomes everywhere. Okay, everywhere in your cafes, bowling alleys, bars, your workplace, your markets, everything becomes a source of education. So these are some significant changes which are going to happen because of technology, and we want to get ready for this one, right? So now this is a cartoon which sort of consolidates this. Had the first industrial revolution, second, third, and fourth, and similarly, which was done because of steam, electric, and then PLC-driven robotics and augmented reality, which is happening in the education 4. I mean, in industrial revolution 4.0. Okay, now see here. So aligning with that was education 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. But as I said, most of our institutions, almost all of them, are still stuck in education 1.0, and we need to grow up into education 2.0 and probably quickly reach 3.0. But that is still a little bit far away. But even achieving education 2.0 is what the national education policy aspires, is that we should go from 1.0 to 2.0. So let's see what this all means, right? So this all started because of the new economic policy in 1991. Once the new economic policy was there, we know that LPG, what we call liberalization, privatization, and globalization, brought in a lot of change. Globalization, especially the word globalization, required measurement of industries and required equivalence of people. Suppose globalization meant that a good or a big educational institution in India can go and open a school or a college in America, or somebody in America, they can come and open a college. Somebody in Europe can come and open a college or a school in India. So this globalization required some sort of a measurement, and that is how NAC started, right? Because you needed a measurement to see where you are globally, how do you fit, at least nationally where you are, then you can compare nationally, internationally. And so you had these NBAs, I mean, all sorts of the Washington Accord, so many things which came, which started something called as an act. And then as a consequence of that, now we also got into education, the changes in the kind of education which are required. Otherwise, we were becoming irrelevant, right? That is what it is. So again, without going into the details of this amazing, we have taken a long journey on education. This particular curve shows the different education policies or education related actions which took for it. So you can see that they were quite well spaced, means it is happening, the changes are happening, etc. Except that the new education policy, the second policy was in 1986, and now in 2020, in between, of course, there are so many committees and suggestions and changes which are made, but ultimately they happen after a long time. Okay, a new education policy, okay, the new national education policy was approved in 2020, right? So you see here the time scale is, I mean, people think that, oh, new education policy is very difficult to implement in this year, but look at this okay, timelines. Okay, this is starting in 21, 22, like Karnataka has taken up the initiative to do that. It expects that the implementation of the policy will be actually completed in 2040. You understand? It is 20 years, it requires 18 years to be completed to work very well. So this is the plan. There is a timeline of how you want to do, how you want to change, etc., etc. So this is just the beginning. So we are in the infant stage of the implementation of the new education policy. Okay, now let's see what we were looking for in higher education. What we are looking for is what we call as graduate attributes. So what should be the attribute when somebody finishes his graduation and comes out? What are the capabilities he need to have? Earlier, it was only that mark sheet that that sort of I call them. We were all Marxists at that time. We were looking for those mark sheets. But what we need to develop is how to think independently in your domain knowledge. Then, more importantly, once you thought about it, now we only were made to remember things. But we were never made to, in our education system, there was hardly any opportunity to think independently. But once you want to think and you want to improve your knowledge, you need to communicate effectively. So then opportunity to create good communication. So a graduate should be able to communicate very, very effectively. And the third is you should learn. It's not the end of knowledge. It's about lifelong learning. It's to develop continuously. So what is the art of developing? The whole end of the degree is not the end of all of education. In fact, it's the beginning of education. So how do we make them realize that you have to keep on developing, continuously in your whole life is very important. And finally, to add to all this, to act responsibly. A graduate has to act extremely responsible in the sense that he has to have values, ethics, okay, the ethos of the system, etc. Because that is the meaning of a graduate. The graduate is about knowledge, about communication, about lifelong learning, and to act responsibly. This is more visible in this graduate attributes. again, the graduate should become adaptable. He should use his knowledge to adapt to any system. Okay, that adaptability has to come into the education system. Then every graduate needs to be confident with the knowledge and as a person, as a human being, right? The confidence has to be built. We see that, graduates are not confident in our system. I mean, I work with a lot of rural colleges, etc. We are not able to bring that confidence among the students. Then creativity is probably the most misused word. Okay, so how do we make people creative? I'll talk about this a little bit later, but ultimately children have to become creative. Small or big, creative doesn't mean that you suddenly go and start a Facebook or anything of that sort. Okay, it is creativity as a thinking process. So education for us at the moment, it is only about remembering things. The better you remember, you are a better student, right? Better knowledgeable person, better marks. But the question is, now we have to change this whole system from remembering information to become creative. So how do we make children creative? And ultimately, the credibility of a graduate. A graduate should be credible in the sense that he opens his mouth, he makes a sentence, people should value it. They should tell that, oh, this has come from a graduate. It is credible. The information he is giving is credibility. That credibility we need to develop. So that, of course, along with this, there are so many other things which a graduate should know. Again, all these things have to be brought into our education system. So how do we do it is something we'll talk a little bit here, but probably it's a long journey to come. There are so many skills and creativity and abilities with the student has to learn and understand even concepts like global citizenship. Okay, how every graduate should become capable of becoming a global citizen, and that I think is a challenge. So now most of our schools something look like this, right? Our children are bored. Okay, our teachers are bored. They are doing the job just because they have to. I mean, there are exceptions. I'm not talking about the exceptions, but generally, everybody is doing it so mechanically that nobody is enjoying education. Like here, this professor is telling, well, my fellow friends, I'm sure my lecture has made you think. But yes, they are thinking about his girlfriend, about a movie or something else. Okay, they're not thinking about the classroom. The classrooms have become so dreadful, right? Unfortunately, I also suffered many classes like that. Again, with exceptions, there were some outstanding teachers who inspired all of us, but most of the teaching in classrooms were not very exciting. So there were some wonderful teachers, okay, like this person here, and he said, oh, there must be a better way of teaching here. I've been doing this for a long time, but now is it time to change? So there were so many things, the traditional things started changing into something modern. And that change is necessary in India, from going from the traditional teaching methods to the other kinds of methods, out of which flipped classroom is one of them. So let's think what is possible. To understand what is teaching and learning, we need to understand how the brain works, which is called as cognitive neurology. Cognitive neurology is a wonderful field. I feel that at the superficial level, of course, I don't understand in the depth with which I should understand. But the question is, every teacher should understand what is cognitive neurology. Only we can teach the way and we can learn the way the brain works. Yeah, anything? Okay, right. So how the brain works. So there are different parts of the brain doing different functions. We all know that. Again, we'll not go into details. So there are some parts of the brain which are related to cognitive domain, in the sense that about remembering, creating, applying, analyzing, understanding, those kind of regions. So different regions in the brain which cater to that. We'll talk a little bit more in the Bloom's taxonomy related to this. And then more interestingly, along with that, we know that brain is not only about the intelligence, this kind of a cognitive, cognitive intelligence, but there is something more important, which is called as emotional intelligence. So our brain, that has two halves, and half of it, nearly half of it, for example, the basal ganglia, the thalamus, and the hypothalamus, and the amygdala gland, and the hippocampus, these are regions which are related to the emotion. So the question is very important, that we can't learn just the information. It has to be linked with emotions, and only then we can that is how our brain works. And then not only that, we need to create, every classroom has to create that mood. We say, today we have mood to study, today I don't have a mood to study, I don't have a mood to, I want to go to a movie. The moods have to be created inside the classroom, and moods are created by by the emergence of many chemicals which are there, which are called as neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters, the serotonin, the dopamine, oxytocin, the endorphins, etc., have to be generated inside the classroom. And once we create that mood, okay, the learning becomes very beautiful. So somehow there is a small, beautiful connection in all of us between the head, the hands, and the heart. So we all have a head, okay, which is supposed to be knowledge, understanding, analysis, feedback, responsibility, and rules. And then we have hands, okay, and then we have the heart, Okay, of course, we all know in science that heart doesn't nothing, it's not emotional, but everything happens in the brain. But we'll call it for convenience sake, there is something called as a heart, which gives about which is about communication, leadership, respect, resilience, effort, confidence, etc. And then, so ultimately, you have the head, which is cognitive, and the heart, which is effective, and then you have to do it. So your hand. So the three H's, the head, the heart, and the hands, are important. And the hands is something to do, which gives you physical ability, fitness levels, competitive techniques, tactics, problem solving, etc. So friends, education is all about connecting the head and the heart and the hands. So how do we do that is the challenge, right? So education is not about only cognition, but connecting all these three, and then only we can become creative and inspiring, right? So there are so many things here, the different steps which we need to take to achieve these things in the cognitive domain, in the affective domain, and the psychomotor domain. But I'll not go into the details, but tell you that very well things are understood. Many things are understood, but it is very important to implement this in our education system. So how do we do it is the challenge for all of us. Right? There's another interesting thing about it. As I told you earlier, we had the concept of IQ, right? People were measured with the kind of IQ you had. But now we know that it is not about IQ. That Howard Gardner from University of Harvard, okay, has come out with this beautiful theory of multiple intelligences. In fact, he says there are 8 kinds of intelligences human beings have, and all of them have all the 8 kinds of intelligence. Some are dominant in each of us. Okay, some could be a naturalist, some could be a spatial or a visual learner. Okay, or somebody could be a linguistic learner. He can do it by reading or talking, etc. Then there are some intrapersonal learner in the sense that people who can read and then sit, contemplate, think about it, and then understand things. And then there are interpersonal learners who understand very well when they discuss with somebody. Okay, not when they study on their own. And then there are logical and mathematical people who like to quantify, make hypotheses, and prove those hypotheses right. So these are some logical and mathematical people. Then there are musical in the sense it's not only about music, it is about rhythm, it is about pitch, the tone, the rhythm, the timbre, etc. So how do you connect that with education is the challenge. Musical doesn't mean that they have to become musicians. Okay, how do we teach using those kind of attributes which students have, with which the brain works? And then body kinesthetic, these are the people who want to coordinate the mind and the hands I talked about. So friends, this is the 8 kinds of intelligences. And in a classroom, let us say we have 50 people, there are 8 people with different kinds of intelligences. Now we cannot teach to one standard way of teaching, right? What we are doing right now, it needs to change, because every 8, that's why in our class, if you look at only one eighth of the people are attentive in your class, because it suits them, the kind of education suits them, the way they are. But rest of the people don't get connected with the whole education system, and that is why we don't produce creativity among most of the people, right? So now this is, as I said, most important is to integrate cognitive, psychomotor, and affective domains, and to take the people along this Bloom's learning levels. This is a hierarchy of learning. So you start remembering things, then you understand that, then you should have the ability, once you understand, to apply it somewhere. Once you apply it, then you should have the ability to analyze the application, whether what went wrong, what could be done better, etc., etc. Then evaluate, for example, judging the values of information or ideas. So you have to evaluate the system. And then, of course, when you create all these 5 steps, okay, then creativity comes in the child. So every education system have to bring in these 5 steps. Of course, these are all debated and questioned. That's a different issue, but let's assume that this all works. So we need to create an educational system which can create these 5 things, so that you allow the students to start creating information, creating knowledge. Okay, so now this is something very interesting. Okay, I like this curve. This is called as the learning curve. On the x-axis is the effort we put for learning, and the y-axis is the knowledge we gain. We all think typically that this is a linear relationship, that more the effort you put, the more the knowledge you gain. Okay, this is what we think. But unfortunately, it is not like this. In fact, this knowledge that it is not like this is used in neural network time series. Okay, neural networks and machine learning and artificial intelligence are based in this concept that it is not at all linear. It is sigmoidal in nature, which means you look at this curve, very interesting curve. So in the initial nearly 40-50% of your effort, you put in a lot of effort, but hardly there is any knowledge learning. Okay, but once that is invested properly, the first 40% of the education is invested properly, then you get this huge takeoff. And suddenly you start learning and you reach 100%. And this is why, because the kind of connections the brain makes. there are neurons and they make connections, and you make connections, clusters and clusters connect, etc. Like the nucleation and growth concepts. Okay, you start having. So this is how we learn. This is how our brain works. So if our learning is like that, how can we teach linearly? Right now, our syllabus and curriculum are designed based on this linear concept. 25% I'll teach 25% of the syllabus, 50% I teach 50% of the syllabus, 75 and a final examination. This doesn't work like this because the brain doesn't work like that, and that is why we are not very successful, and our actual learning happens according to this line, that broken line here. That's why in every class we sit, in the classroom we sit, we only learn about 10 to 15% of the knowledge. The rest of the thing, I'll have to go to tuition, or I have to work hard at home. I have to write, rewrite, read, and spoil all my youth only doing education if you want to score 100 marks. Right? This is very unfortunate. But if we adopt this method of the sigmoidal method, okay, then we can learn beautifully without really, and then let the children go home and do other beautiful things like art and music and all sorts of beautiful youthful things which people can do. And that is possible because 8 hours in school should be more than enough to become those wonderful people. So how do we align our education to make this happen is the question. But when you look at this, break this into smaller parts, this whole sigmoidal, it also consists of many sigmoidals. So the question is, every class has to be sigmoidal, every month has to be sigmoidal, every topic has to be sigmoidal, every semester has to be sigmoidal, every knowledge has to be sigmoidal. So how do we do this is, I think, is a very important aspect of teaching learning experience. Okay, now this brings in the importance of pedagogy. How do we teach? How do we bring in all these concepts into this one? So there are several theories in that: behaviorism, the cognitivism, the constructivism. Behavior is the one which is what we are still following, right? It is a question of doing it again and again and again and changing your own behavior. But now there are many other things. Then it slowly moves to cognitivism, constructivism, experientialism, and contextualism. So this is something. There are so many different methods of how we can learn, and these are the learning processes. These can be done by concrete experience or reflective observations or abstract conceptualization and active experimentation. So there are so many methods of learning, and unfortunately we don't adopt all these techniques in our teaching process, and that's why the learning is very weak. I just, share one, to show our education system. There'll be a man who is walking with a dog on the road, and suddenly one of his friends comes and asks, "Oh, did you buy a new dog? Which breed is it? Looks very nice." He said, "Yeah, this is a beagle. It's a very intelligent dog," this fellow says. Then he said, "Oh, very intelligent. Then what have you taught it?" Okay, you know that the people shake hands, roll, bark, everything is all dogs do, but this is a very intelligent dog. So what have you taught it? So this fellow says, "I've taught it to whistle." Okay, this fellow says, "Whistle? I've never heard a dog whistling. So how did you teach it to whistle?" Then both of them ask the dog to whistle. Okay, hey, whistle. He doesn't whistle. So this fellow says, "Hey, what is this? You told me that you have taught it to whistle, but it's not whistling." He said, "What can I do? I taught it to whistle, but it doesn't whistle. It did not learn." So this is the kind of education we have. We don't worry. So now the idea is, if the students, every student in the class doesn't learn, then teaching has not happened. So teaching happens only when every student in the class has to learn. And that is why we need a very different kind of education which is necessary in the future. So this is, again, a lot of work has been done on pedagogies, the different kinds of pedagogies one can implement. For example, you see here, self-assessment, large group discussion, think, pair, share, informal groups, tired groups, okay, group evaluations, brainstormings, interactive lectures, okay, jigsaw, okay, role playing, inquiry learning. See, this is going from simple methods like pause and reflection to writing, to very complex systems such as experiential learning and forum theaters, okay, and inquiry learning. So how do we implement all this in our education system? How do we bring in that knowledge through these different kinds of methods so that it appeals to everybody, okay, and create that mood for everybody to learn, and learn with the people with different kinds of intelligence? So now you see, this is called as a learning pyramid, which is very interesting. You see in this pyramid, again, I don't want to go into details, but just tell you, the lecture mode, which we follow now with 90% of the times, you have only 5% learning. Just like the curve I showed you in my in that sigmoidal curve. So lecture mode teaches so less. Reading gives you 10%, demonstration is 30%. Okay, and then discussions give you 50%, and then teaching others give you 90% of learning. So teaching others. So we all know that as teachers, we have learned when we were teaching. Okay, probably when we wrote the exams, we did not understand, but when we are supposed to. So how do we give the experience for students to teach others while they are students? I think then that can become a very beautiful learning where we can combine the cognitive, the affective, and the psychomotor skills. So how do we do that is all well understood now, but it is fine time for us to implement this and how it has happened. And again, look at this. This is very interesting, right? We talk about multidisciplinarity, but there are so many kinds of disciplinarity. Different fields can combine in different ways. Interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary. This picture is a beautiful picture. Again, I don't have enough time to go on explaining all of this, but the content itself is very self-revealing. You can see how the interdisciplinarity is different from multidisciplinarity, is different from cross-disciplinarity and interdisciplinarity and transdisciplinarity. So we need to bring all these techniques to make our education successful in the learning, teaching experience as we talk. Okay, we need to bring all these techniques. So, and these have to be planned. These are skills. And once we learn the skills, we'll be able to do all this beautifully and appeal to every student. And every student can become very beautiful in the field he or she chooses to be. That is very important. So coming to all this, that is, I think, the opportunity of the new education policy in 2020. We are so glad, even during the pandemic, the government took the decision of bringing the policy. They put in amazing efforts. They opened it to the public, lot of feedback. They tried to incorporate everything, and that whole thing has come. And I'm also so glad that Karnataka state took the leadership and said, let's be the first one to do it. Let's be the first one to do that, and they did it with all earnest sincerity. Of course, there are limitations of what we can do on the first year. I mean, how many mistakes we do, we learn from making the mistakes, and we have made several good moves. We have also made some mistakes, so we will go on correcting it. But it was an amazing experience. So we will become the guide for other states, because now when they are writing the new education policy, the first thing they will look is the education policy implemented by Karnataka. So this is very good. Lot of lectures. Okay, 50% gross ratio. Okay, so many things are there, which I'm sure you all know this, that we by 2035 we need to meet 50%. The holistic and flexibility. Okay, now there is a UG program goes to 4 years. A PG program goes to 1 or 2 years. Okay, integrated 5 years bachelor's and master's degree can be there. Then MPhil is discontinued. Then there is something called as a credit transfer. I'll come to that in the next slide. Okay. Right. See here, this is the picture which tells us about what the new education policy is for higher education. So actually a student can exit after 1 year with a certificate of a particular skill, which will give him an opportunity to do a job. He or she can also exit after 2 years with a higher skill, okay, a more supervisory kind of skill with a diploma. Right? Or they can exit and enter. So you can go with an exit certificate and then come back and enter some other stage in your life into your third degree. And your third year, you can exit with a degree. Okay, with a degree in that particular this one. But ultimately, you can also, there is something called as introduced the fourth year. Fourth year means honors as well as honors with research and without research. So now it's very interesting. So if you do the fourth year honors degree, you can go directly without doing post graduation into a PhD, because you are already trained in research. Now, if you can do the fourth year without honors, then you can go and do either your fourth year master's PG or into the fifth year. So you can do a PG, which is 2 years, and you can choose where you want. So this kind of flexibility, okay, is very, very important. But this is possible only because of a different method of evaluation, right? Accessing. So other reforms which are connected with this is credits. No, it is not the course which becomes important, but the credits you get for each discipline becomes very important. So credit transfers, the policy defines the starting of an academic bank of credits. So you can go on collecting credits from different places and put them together in your bank, and ultimately have that. If you have enough credits, you get the degree or the certificate or the diploma, degree, or your honors. Okay, depending on how many credits you accumulated from different places. And the assessment is very different, because you know that we do this so-called final examinations, or the 1 or 2 semester examinations, which are basically summative assessment. But what is important is how the education policy gives an opportunity to do a lot of formative assessment. In fact, you know that the internal marks has now been increased from 20 to 40. This is for formative assessment. But eventually the NEP plans more than 80% will be formative assessment and only 20% will be summative assessment. So slowly the steps will be taken to go towards that. So what do we do in formative assessment? What is formative assessment is also something challenge. And not only that, very interestingly, you can see 40% of the credits can be got from online. Okay, from the MOOCs course or anything like that. So you have 40% of the credits can come online. You need not get it in your college or your institution. You can get it online. And then if you get the credits from there, it will be treated to give you your due credit. Then the new education policy plans to make teaching intensive universities and research intensive universities to produce high quality teaching as well as high quality research. And then all the colleges eventually will become autonomous degree colleges, and they expect one university in every district of this country. So enormous big plan which will be, as I said, 2040 to make it possible. Okay, then this is based on, whole thing is based on what is called as outcome based design. So how do we do this is the challenge. Again, I will require a lot of time to explain what is outcome based education, but it's not really big. So you are trying to bring in personal and interactive skills, knowledge and intellectual ability, basic skills and understanding, and work skills and approach. And this is called as the T shape. That means skills and ability will be this one, but the depth in your particular discipline will be dominant. So you have a depth in the discipline, plus you will have skills and abilities so that you can use your discipline in a much more versatile manner, in a much more creative manner. And that is what it is. So now to do this, you need to design a curriculum. Obviously, so you can design a curriculum something like this. From the first year, you see about 20% is personal and interactive skills, 35% for knowledge and intellectual ability. Basic skills and understanding goes in the, or the experiential learning goes in 15%, and then workplace skills and applied knowledge is about 30%. So now I go to the second year, I go on reducing the personal interactive skills because it is accumulated over the years, and go on enhancing the knowledge and the domain capability or the domain knowledge. And you can see here increasing in that way. Further, again you have decreased. Then you see here it is almost 65% is your domain knowledge, and slowly ultimately you will see 70% your domain knowledge, and also 10% also is domain, which is basically self-study or lifelong learning. And then your other skills which are related to the subject, which is in your fourth year, you focus all the 100% on the particular subject you have, so, or the domain you have. So by the time you complete your honors, you are a complete expert in that particular field or domain. So while you have also picked up all your technical skills as well as your emotional skills or the soft skills which are necessary, the language, the communication, your team leadership, etc., etc. So that is how the curriculum has to be designed in the new education policy. Okay, so again, we all said that online education was so bad. Most of us said that it was not successful. We saw a lot of debates on the newspaper, etc. But it is because now we'll have three kinds of education. One is online, the hybrid, and the classroom education. And we have to get used to this. Our online education was not successful because neither the teachers nor the student know how to utilize the online. We were trying to do the conventional traditional teaching online, and that's why it was not successful. But look at this graph, which tells me the benefits of online education. It's student-centric, flexible, accessible, global knowledge, student control study time, the teacher control teaching time. Okay, chances for interaction is much higher. It is very, very cost effective and better opportunity. So all these things can happen, and that I think is a beautiful. So we need to learn how to get onto the online, the hybrid, and the classroom teacher. There will be a combination of all these techniques which will happen, etc. Okay, so ultimately this whole thing, which is based on outcomes, I mean, the whole new education policy about the student decides what to study, when to study, where to study, and how to study. Okay, it is not the course or the structure or the institution which decides what they have to do. It is about this kind of study. Okay, so friends, I think based on the outcome-based education, the whole NEP can become a very, very new dimension. It can be the dawn of student-centric education. We need that paradigm change from a teacher-centric education to the student-centric education, and I think that is going to happen. Okay, the OBE framework, it starts working in different ways. So you design your programs based on the outcomes, etc. We can because of lack of time, I'll cut short this. And then of course, and the implementation has to be the other way around. You design from top to bottom, but your delivery go from bottom to up. And that is what is outcome-based education, which is going to, so everything is well defined. The POs, the program objectives, and then the course objectives, the course outcomes, and TLOs. Everything can be defined very beautifully right in the beginning of the program itself, so that it can be designed properly, so that it can be delivered effectively. And how do we measure this, etc., is a challenge. So, friends, with Industrial Revolution 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, okay, things are going to change. If we want to remain relevant, we also need to change technology. Okay, we need to change into the modernity of life. So let us also evolve through education. And this, the national education policy is a great opportunity for us to learn how to change. And change is the most important thing in all of life. Of course, we all know that we have produced a lot of Vishwagurus, right? We know about Aryabhatta, okay, Brahmagupta, Chakra, Shushruta, I mean, Chanakya, all sorts of people. But we also produced wonderful scientists like Jagdish Chandra Bose, Prafulla Chandra, okay, I mean, C.V. Raman, Vikram Sarabhai, Ramanujan. Amazing people have produced in the modern times, recent times. But this is not enough. Okay, they were all great for those times. But what is important is, how do we get ready for the future? So Bharata has to become the Vishwaguru of the future. That is what the new education policy is. We need to adopt these changes, also including my guru and my mentor, Professor C.N.R. Rao. These are amazing people who inspire us to do something. But we need to change. We need to take the country for the future, for the modernity, for the future of science. Okay, while we respect all the people in the past who have contributed enormously, the world doesn't stop there. We need to go ahead and produce and become the Vishwagurus in the future. I thank you very much for your patience. I know I was a little bit hurried in this because I wanted to tell this, but if somebody is interested, I'll be very happy to interact with them individually and try to share whatever little bit I know, and also an opportunity from to learn from all the people, right? So, my friend, let me stop here. Okay, let me see, how do I stop here?
Thank you, sir. It's okay. It's a great slide. You can leave it if you want. No problem there. It's absolutely fine. Right. Well, I don't have to speak much.
Sorry, sir.
I'm just saying I don't have to speak much. I'm just spoiling the
Oops.
ambience of the whole, the lecture that you delivered. It was amazing. You have taken us through a whirlwind tour of, from the prehistoric times to the current times, what happened to industry. Most
Stop
importantly,
sharing.
your
Let me see, how do I stop sharing? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
I was just saying that you've taken us through a whirlwind tour. You have shown why we have to adapt. That's the most important thing. We always hear that things are going to change, but we don't often hear why we have to change and what will happen if we don't change. And in that perspective, you have given us a really good
Absolutely.
idea of why this is needed at this time. I don't have to say
Yes.
anything. One of our audience today, Dr. Krishna Venkatesh, has summarized it very succinctly. He says one of the best and outstanding lectures and truly energizing, besides being informative in a succinct way. So I'm sure a lot of people are feeling this. Unfortunately, we haven't unmuted all of them, but we will give an opportunity later. But I would like to take this opportunity to welcome Captain Ganesh Karnik, who is our president for SVAK. Karnik sir, I think it's a great opportunity for you to please share your thoughts, while I request the participants to put in your questions. I will ask the questions after Karnik sir addresses the gathering a little bit, and you have chance to put your questions now. Please go ahead, and we will share the
Hello.
feedback links towards the end. Sir, please go ahead, sir. Sir, please go ahead, sir. You can also switch on the video if you can.
Sir, good evening.
Good
Hello.
evening, sir.
Can I ask one question?
We will
Good
come
evening.
to the question and answer. Just a second, please. Let's give a chance to Captain Ganesh Karnik sir to just address the gathering first.
Dr. Shiv Prasad and Mr. Umesh, Mr. Ramesh from Swadeshi, Vijnanandalam General Secretary, and all of us who have listened to this enlightening talk by Mr. Shiv Prasad, I profusely thank you. Thank you for taking us down this journey. As if I'm permitted to quote Einstein, I'm told he said this: to learn, we have to unlearn. And he had also said, let schooling not come in way of my education. From these two perspectives, and the basic child-centric and Bharat-centric approach in the National Education Policy 2020, should take us to a different kind of approach towards what we could have achieved and what we did not achieve and what we should achieve in the next say 25, 30, 40, 50 years.
Yes.
You rightly said, if India has to become Vishwa Guru,
Yes.
it is only a paradigm shift in our approaches towards educational, institutionalized approach that we have developed over the past 150 or 200 years since Britishers, came and started ruling us.
Right.
Having said this, I think the challenges in front of us, making a policy statement and then executing it.
Absolutely.
Executing is a big challenge.
Big challenge. Yes.
The educational infrastructure that we have developed on a model which is not Indian, and to undo it or retaining the best practices that is available in the prevalent system and switching over to the new national education policy is going to be a challenge. A challenge in a democratic society where we have fractured kind of mandates coming year after year and multiplications of political ideologies and the kind of federal structure and education being a subject in the concurrent list.
Yeah.
All these are great challenges. I'm talking from a politician's perspective. So I think it is most important that people like Mr. Shiv Prasad, who have really understood the essence of this approach. In fact, if you look at it, there is no politics involved in it. In fact, this has got the best practices of past 6 commissions reports as well as all over the world has been incorporated into this. For me, Savidya Ya Vimuktaye is essentially the Indian approach towards education. Education is all about enlightenment.
Absolutely.
And when you are enlightened, you are light within. And when you are light within, there cannot be inhibition, there cannot be darkness, there cannot be shadows.
Absolutely.
And if I can quote a small, day-to-day example, this human body is like a smartphone. When we came onto this earth, we were sent here with lot of inbuilt applications. Like we use our smartphone, we don't know what are the inbuilt applications, and whatever little we make use of only little part of it.
That's right.
So education is a process through which we can unearth, unleash the tremendous amount of inbuilt applications that is inside each one of us. Like Swami Vivekananda said, the very purpose could be Atmana Mokshartham. It is unleashing and unearthing the inbuilt applications. For what? For Atmana Mokshartham Jagad Hitaya. So,
societal good. Yeah.
yes, if this essentially becomes the policy initiative, policy approach, or the mission statement of national education policy, if all of us who are involved in the process of education in some way or the other, we all have this arduous task of ensuring that the inbuilt applications are brought out in the right perspective for the well-being of the world at large. That is why our elders said, Udara Charitanam tu Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. With this perspective, I think a lot of good work has happened. Now the challenge is in its delivery.
Yes.
I think I must appreciate, I must thank, and I must congratulate Mr. Shiv Prasad. Somebody said just now, possibly this is one of the best lectures I have heard in recent times with regard to national education policy. We would like to request you to become part of our movement called Swadeshi Vijnan Andolan. When Professor Vasu established this Swadeshi Vijnan Andolan, the perspective was there is tremendous amount of contributions made by our elders in different dimensions, different walks of life, and there is no area which they have not touched. Unfortunately, there has been a veil put on top of all these things, and something else was being propagated and promoted. It is time that we bring out the truth, the immense contributions of our rich heritage of our Sanatan Parampara, And this is where India-centric approach towards education as envisaged in the National Education Policy 2020 and making it child-centric will deliver. And this is the key purpose of, I think, Swadeshi Vijnan Andolan movement. I'm not an academician like all of you, or I'm neither somebody who has worked in this area. But as a citizen, as a responsible citizen, as a citizen having a lot of respect for our heritage, I personally feel this is the time India should deliver. This is the time we all should come united. This is the time we all should think as Indians. We have been divided on flimsy grounds, on very divisive, small issues. Coming out of it, getting out of all those inhibitions, to stand up as one nation and to look forward with the great heritage that we have inherited from our elders. And through a system of education, we could address the issues not only of India, but the world at large. We can become real Vishwagurus.
Absolutely.
But each one of us have a great responsibility. As our Honorable Prime Minister says, nation first. And whatever we do, if start thinking in terms of what is the little contribution I can do. And I think that is the requirement of the day. So thank you very much from Swadeshi Vijnanandalan. Thank you very much, sir. I'm sorry I could not join you in the initial part because I was driving in Bangalore City. I got stuck in the traffic, evening traffic. But I listened to your entire talk. Thank you so much. God bless you. Jai Hind.
Thank you for your kind words. It's an honor to get the kind of words. Hopefully one day I'll deserve those nice words you said. And yes, I'll be more than happy to be a part of this, the Vignan Andolan. Yeah,
Thank you.
With all the wonderful people like you are promoting and doing it. It is very, very essential, as you said. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
My special thanks to Mr. Umesh also for coordinating this beautiful lecture. Thank you, Mr. Umesh.
Thank you,
you.
sir. Thank
God
you.
bless. Jai Hind.
By the way, I need to disclose that Professor Shiv Prasad is part of SVAK already, sir, in a way. So we will reach out to him for more inputs on all the activities we do. Thank you, sir. So thanks a lot for people who have been waiting. I have got a few questions.
Your voice
sir.
is breaking.
Okay. I don't know whether it's breaking for everyone.
Sir, your voice is breaking.
Okay.
Umesh, your voice is breaking.
Is it getting better, sir? I've switched off my video. Is it?
Umesh, I suggest put off your video and come through audio only.
Yes, that's what I've done. Is it better now?
You can put off your video, yeah.
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 Yeah, is it better, sir, now? Can you hear me?
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you hear me, sir, now?
Better.
Yeah, okay. So in the interest of time, I'll have some quick fire questions if you don't mind. The first thing is from Dr. C. Jagdisha asking EQ is to be measured apart from IQ. Is that true? Can you hear, sir? Can you hear me now, sir? Shiv Prasad, sir, can you hear me?
Now it's clear. Yeah. Please.
Yeah, so we have a question which says, this is from Dr. C. Jagdisha, who is asking, we need to measure EQ apart from IQ. Is that correct?
Absolutely, sir. I mean, actually, measurement is one aspect, but the question is, because the EQ again is not constant for each, it's varying with every person. So understanding the students, okay, and their emotional quotient, okay, is very important for teaching. That's why I said in every classroom, there is a binomial distribution of competences of students, right? Now, the question is, we cannot end up teaching in one particular way. The idea is, how do we teach or how do we mentor them in a binomial distribution way? And that, I think, is the ability of a teacher. After all, what we are doing in colleges or institutions is we are not teaching anything new. We are just teaching them what exists, what has become a textbook, which has been well established. So the question is, how do I reach the students and understand their emotions before I can deliver is the real challenge for a teacher. Otherwise, with 5G and the technology coming up, we may be soon having holographic images of people from Harvard who will come and teach and walk around in your class and teach teach, and then ultimately when the Harvard professor is teaching, what will the Harvard professor do? So we need to understand the emotional connect is more important than the information. Information is there. Now the question is, information is in plenty, but the idea is, how do we connect? How do we inspire students? How do we motivate students? And just like Carnegie said, how do we inspire them to become a part of this wonderful game we are playing to enhance the quality of our country, of our nation? How do we bring it? That motivation, I think, putting that together and bringing the best out of them and training the teachers to do this, to understand the emotional quotient and the intelligent quotients. I mean, how do we connect this cognitive and psychomotor and the affective domains is the real challenge for the future.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Great answer. I have another question from Ms. Chetana asking, we have different learning capabilities among students. How can we inculcate learning in all the students when there is so much variability?
Absolutely.
And you take class strength, language capability. How can we make this happen?
Absolutely. I think that is what I am suggesting, that we need to, just like, in commerce, they say, know your customers, right? In business. So like that, know your students is a very important thing. So every student, we need to know them in their emotions, right? In their backgrounds. So ultimately, of course, it's not possible to mentor every student or everything, but there are domains. We can break, suppose there are 60, 70, 80 people in the classrooms, we can make domains and we make them interact between each other. So that's why there are several pedagogical methods which we need to implement, in our classrooms. We do only the lecture mode appeals to only 4 or 5 people out of the 80% of the people. But the question is, as I said, there are multiple intelligences in people. So we need to adopt, I mean, for every domain I'm talking about, there are different pedagogical methods. Again, I don't have time here to explain every pedagogical method. There are some very, very interesting methods where you can actually involve the students in their own ways of learning. And if we learn how to give the different tools in the way they want to learn, and also make them peer learning a very powerful technique, rather than the teacher teaching, making peer learning as a technique. So there are these, if we adopt these pedagogical techniques, which are several are there, maybe at some other time I'll probably would like to give a talk.
Sure, sir. Sure. Yeah, we need to arrange more. There's so much hunger to know more about these things. Yeah, great. So there's one more radical question here, sir.
Yeah.
From Professor Krishna Venkatesh, which is asking, why do we need to have this compartmentalization in education system like computer science, electronics, civil, or anything like that? Why can't we bring a single honors program invoking entire STEM program at a fast pace?
Absolutely, sir. I mean, that's why this becomes a possibility in the new education policy. We are not thinking about that even in the implementation of the new education policy. Just like and Dr. Karnik said, okay, we're still not able to implement it very effectively, because here there is an opportunity, because I mean it is not discipline based now. Right now you can go on collecting credits from different places, and you can put them all together and do whatever the child wants. But the question is, how do we guide them to do the right thing? I think that is the bigger challenge. But now the silos which are there, which we are now right now in those silos, and we define and we try to climb in those silos with the ladders we have, and the ladders which are defined by the system, I think they will become outdated soon if we can implement the policy very well. And then we can easily go across silos. I mean, that is I think the greatness about this new of the national education policy, where you break the silos. As I said, you can take the course you want right now.
Yes.
I think
Thank you, sir. That's really nice. Yeah. One last question in the interest of time. Dr. Raghavendra Krishna is asking, how can teaching be made entertaining to make students curious?
Absolutely, very good question, and it brings you to a little bit of commercial break, because this is what our academy is trying to do. Again, I did not have time to talk about our academy, etc. So I request all of you who are interested to come to our academy when the program is going on, and we will be able to discuss. We keep our 10 chairs empty during our training programs to show to not only for people to come and watch what it is, but they can also guide us in how to improve our training programs. So we have found methods. What we do is we have several parameters, rubrics, everything, which are skills which classes can be made interesting, humorous, very knowledge based, experiential learning, different kinds of pedagogies. How do we put together? This is what our academy tries to do. Okay, still, of course, a long way to go, but we are making a good attempt in that particular direction. Yeah.
Right.
Mr.
Thank you, sir. So I've also shared the link to your office, the Academy, web link I have put in there for anybody who wants to look at it.
Of course, I should admit that our webpage is not still as well as it should
That's
be.
fine.
We are working on
Yeah.
that. Yes, a preliminary thing. Yeah.
Sure.
Mr.
We
Mr.
have a
Umesh,
lot of interesting questions here, sir. What I'll do is I'll compile them. Some of them are very fascinating. I will reach out to you with the questions, and I'll probably respond back to the people who have asked them. In the interest of time, if you wouldn't mind, we will turn over to the official vote of thanks. Is it okay, sir?
I have no problem. I'm just putting my email ID. Okay.
Sure.
In the chat box. If somebody is interested, I'll be very happy to interact with them. Okay. Right.
Sure, sir. Sure. That's really nice of you.
Yeah.
Mr. Umesh, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
One word I wanted to say, if
Yeah.
you permit me, and if Dr. Shubprasad
Sure,
agrees.
sir. Go ahead, please.
See, most of the time we had an approach of I teach, you learn whatever I teach. It is a shift from I teach, you learn from that aspect to creating a conducive learning atmosphere. So there is a great amount of responsibility in all of us to understand the child. When we say child centric, it can be IQ, it can be EQ, it can be so many things. Understanding the child and creating a conducive learning atmosphere is essentially the most important aspect of, I personally feel, this national education policy. As teachers, as elders, we should bear this in mind. Otherwise, it has been mark centric and teaching centric. Now it is learning centric, but it takes a lot of time and efforts. We need to change our approaches to our classroom teaching or practical teaching, a lot of things. So there is a lot of work needs to be done, and that is where Professor Shivprasad and alike may have to contribute immensely in the coming days.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Somebody's last question I just wanted to answer.
Yes, sir. Yes.
About
Please go ahead.
Research funding, and it's going low. So how can this policy be great? I strongly believe that slowly the entrepreneurship concept will become very strong with the new education policy. And I think that is, now it is all, everybody is looking for a job, but the question is job creators, right? So once we become creative, as I said, I think there will be a lot of opportunities created because of the entrepreneurship concept. And when it is also not only scientific, technical entrepreneurship, but also social entrepreneurship. And that is what we need to concentrate in our education system, so that we can take care of several of these questions which were there. But the government is also doing some wonderful things. They're making research intensive universities, also bringing a national research foundation, etc. and probably collating different kinds of universities together to be able to fund them specifically depending on this one. The small level of research will be done mostly by entrepreneurship and local industries and support. I think that's a very important point which has been raised. So we need to think on those lines also if we want to really bring a comprehensive overall development of the country. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. We are getting questions still. As I promised, I'll come back to you with all the questions, and I will respond back to the people who have asked them. Thanks.
Please.
Now, if I may ask Dr. Gayatri to kindly and succinctly propose a vote of thanks. It has been an amazing session. I would like to hand over to Dr. Gayatri now. Gayatri madam, can you hear us? Can you please unmute?
Sir.
Yes.
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, madam. Please go ahead.
Yes. Namaskara to all. Namasabhayai Sabhapatibhyascha. Sir, really it was a wonderful and very informative session. And we all enjoyed it, sir. And there are many questions to be answered by you. And we need many more sessions from you. So, as a part of our tradition, so I personally thank heartfelt thanks to you, sir, and we will look forward for more sessions of you. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and for having shared your knowledge, sir. Thank you very much.
Grateful to you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you, madam.
So I thank our ever encouraging President Dr. Ganesh Karnik sir, and also all our SVAK family for this, and all the people or all the participants who have taken much knowledge from Shiva Prasad sir today. And also I'm thankful to NMIT team for sharing this Cisco WebEx, and all the people here and all the people who have made this lecture a success with their contributions directly and indirectly. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Gayatri Madam. Gayatri Madam is our
Sir,
treasurer, sir. Yes.
excuse me, sir.
Yes. Please.
Yeah. Sir, will you kindly share that site address
Yes,
for the teachers once more?
Yeah, I will share the link for the academy, you mean, right? I'll share the link for the academy. I'll also share the link to the feedback forms. Please
Sir,
go
is
ahead
it shared in?
in the chats. Yes.
Or you can send in the email, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yes.
No problem. Thank you.
It's okay, sir.
Yeah, thank you. With that, it has been amazing journey today, but it's already time has flown so fast. I'm sure there are lots of questions. Shiv Prasad sir has luckily given his contact details. So if anybody wants to reach out to Professor Shiv Prasad, please do so. With that, I would also like to thank everyone who has been present today and who have made this amazing. We have had participants from 14 different states and 4 different countries. It's a very nice gathering here. Thanks a lot for joining in, and we look forward to conduct more programs of this kind, and we request you to come and participate in them as well. Thanks a lot. Sir, shall we end the session if you don't mind, sir? Shiv Prasad sir, shall we end the session now?
Can I leave now? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.